Всем привет! Добро пожаловать в библиотеку. Сегодня, несмотря на то, что везде локдаун, везде все закрыто, нам удалось оформить такой онлайн-ивент вместе с потрясающей Софией Ву, которая к нам чуть позже подключится. И действительно, это большая радость, что такой специалист такого уровня, игровой продюсер, смог подключиться к нам и расскажет сегодня о том, как управлять креативными командами, как создать такую команду, которая способна сделать успешный продукт.
Да, успешный продукт и не только как создать такую команду, а как управлять такой командой, которая делает успешные игры. В данном случае продукт — это успешная игра. И у Софии достаточно большой опыт в создании таких команд и управлении успешными продуктами.
Да, достаточно перечислить список компаний, в которых она работала. И это поначалу в ее карьере была компания Philips, National Geographic, компания Walt Disney. А потом она была продюсером в Vuga Games, она была продакт-лидом Diamond Dash, Jelly Splash, потом она была гейм-лидом в Rovio на Angry Birds, и сейчас она работает над собственным проектом Voodoo. И стоит отметить, что у нее есть своя платформа, которая называется Rise and Play.
Да, София на этой платформе достаточно подробно шарит свой опыт о том, как нанимать людей, как создавать креативные команды, как подбирать людей, на что опирается она в этой философии. Ну и более детально мы уже сможем с ней сегодня проговорить это в течение нашего тока.
Обязательно задавайте свои вопросы в комментариях. Мы постараемся на все эти вопросы ответить в конце нашего главного интервью. И самое важное, что обязательно переходите по ссылочке на платформу Rise and Play. Это абсолютно бесплатная платформа, на которой София делится своими знаниями абсолютно бесплатно. Ее можно поддержать, задонатить немножко. И, по сути, София сегодня вместе с нами участвует, так сказать, на благотворительной основе, потому что для нее важно, ее миссия делиться со всеми знаниями, которые она смогла получить, и за это мы бесконечно ей благодарны. Так, если у нас уже София, подключилась ли она? София подключилась. Hi, София. Hi.
Hi,
Hi, Sophia. Nice to meet you.
Hi.
Yeah, nice to meet you again. So we've made some introduction in Russian, and we are ready to switch to English and have a small interview with you. Are you okay?
Yes, all good.
Yes, awesome. And I'd like to start that you work in such huge companies as Philips, as National Geographic Society, Walt Disney Company, and after that you were product lead at Diamond Dash and Jelly Splash and at Rovio, and now you are game lead at Voodoo. And when I was thinking about it, and when I was noting all this career path, I was thinking, wow, there's just a single person. Wow, it's such an impact, and it's really amazing, and it's an honor to talk to you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yeah, Sophie. Actually, just to start our talk, share please with us some your observation and your opinion. What does make a group of people a team?
Yeah, it's interesting because we talk a lot about teams as it's something that is, like known just because, I don't know, a team could be in sport, could be in games, but we never look at the definition, the pure definition of it. And I think as a team, what defines a team, and not just as a group of individuals, otherwise it would be just a group, it's really having a common goal. So that's the first thing, like really being there for the same reason, the same goal, the same mission. So it's really important that something unify this group as a team. So in sport, you go for the win, right? In a game team, what are you here for? So I really think as well, it's important when you think about teams to have also a very clear mission for the team. Why are they there? Why as a group are they there together? And another aspect is what I related to culture, values. Usually in a group or what we call a team, there are shared values. And I really like to think as well of team in game development, like also sport teams. You have like mottos, behaviors, values, things that you support. And that's in a group what makes a team. So a common mission and common values, I would say, are the key pillars of what makes a team.
Oh, thank you. Can you share with us what does it mean about values? What values should possess every member of a team, or it should be like a team values? What does it mean?
Yeah. So team values really starts with a team lead, actually. Because in the end, when you think about, for me, team values is really related to culture. And how do you create culture in a team? You don't create by telling people, okay, you should be like this, this is culture. So culture is really through the behavior and the actions of the leader. So when you think of values, the team lead should reflect on themselves. What do they believe in? What are their values of working? What are their even personal values in life? What do they value? Why do they have certain type of friends that are their friends? How do they make decisions? What are their professional values as well? And these values, they define basically the environment that they will create as a lead in the group. And I give examples here of my personal values. They're personal values because I apply them in my also personal life, but they also apply in professional life. So for example, for me, it's really important to continue to learn and grow. So growth mindset is a team value, for example, for me. Another one is about being a team player. So I really want team members to be here for the win as a group, not as an individual or one superstar that lifts the rest. So that is one of the core values. Or being very player-centric is one of our core values. So we are making games for others, for an audience, for players. We are not making games for ourselves. I haven't been on this team to make a game for me. I have been on this team to make a game for an audience that I think deserves to have, a different experience. So each value are very personal to a team leader. And there are no right or wrong values, but they should be clarified and they should be communicated verbally very clearly to the team.
So can you describe a little bit more about team players? What stands for this?
So team players, for example, and it's important actually when you think about values, it can be a nice word on the wall and then people read it and it's like, okay, I'm a team player. I don't even know what it means. So what I do usually with the values is that I break them down in behaviors. How does it look like in our day-to-day operations to be a team player? So for example, supporting each other always, even if it's not their direct responsibility. So when you're a team player, you may help, a developer may help an artist, although they are not responsible for art. That's what it means to be a team player. Or when there's a mistake being done, then you don't blame the person for the mistake. Like, it's okay, we made a mistake, let's learn from this, let's do better next time. Because in the end, we are in the same boat and everyone is responsible and there's not just one person who made the mistake. So supporting each other in the good and bad times. That's what it means to be a team player for me. And if I have a last example is when we look at career paths, when you want to develop yourself in the team. I have people sometimes, and they have been in teams and sometimes we parted way because we don't share these values, who wanted to get promoted. Okay, I joined this team. I want to be on a director level in a year. And it's like, this is a great goal. But unfortunately, what we're doing here in this team is that first we have to ship a great game, be successful as a studio. Then when we grow, of course, promotion can happen, but not the other way. But the person really wanted to get the promotion, a title, to continue on the career path in or outside of the company. And this is where we have to part ways because we don't have the same priority or goals. So this is how it looks like as well, that you put in a lower priority your personal goals for the goals of the group, for the moment, and it's terms of priority. So here are examples.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and most interesting point for me from your LinkedIn bio is, I'll read it, growth mindset, integrity, and ownership are at the heart of my team philosophy to build a successful game in a competitive market. And I believe we could better understand this at the end of today's meeting, but your answers and your knowledge is really outstanding. And tell us, please, about trust in team. I think this is the most important thing.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remind here why trust is important. Also, because behind a team and collaboration, when we make a game is a product, a result of collaboration of a group. And to collaborate, trust is important, because if you cannot, for example, have conflicts, or if you cannot disagree in a healthy way, then nothing happens, and then nobody questions the decision, and then you don't have necessarily a good performing game. So trust indeed is important, and it's a hard question. How do you build trust, and how do you have trust in the team? Because it's a human level. It's asking like, how can you have trust as well in individuals and in humans? And maybe I can break it down in 3 parts. What's behind trust? So when you want to develop trust with others, you have to understand who they are. So understand what they stand for. Like sometimes you face people who you don't like because you don't really get who they are. Like you say they are fake, or they are not authentic. So actually getting to know more people, that's what creates trust. So it takes time, it takes experience, spending time together. A second thing is understanding how the person thinks. So the logic. So sometimes we disagree with others, and it makes us distrust others when we don't think the same way. But if you can understand as well why people think differently, what is their logic, then you can make sense of them. Like, okay, for example, I have somebody very analytical in front of me. It's not because he doesn't think like me that they are wrong. The way of thinking I understand, but that's not my way of thinking, and we can still coexist. So that's what helps create trust. And at last is empathy that creates trust. So empathy is really that when you can see that the person cares for you. So sometimes when you disagree, if a person disagrees with you, but they really care about the same goal, this is what creates trust. So there are different components behind the trust. And for this to really happen, it just takes time and experience. And I often say, when I'm asked, how do you create trust in the team? Like, how can you engineer it? I have just one answer to this: ship and kill games together. This is what makes trust in a group. You do something together, and then you learn all of what I shared, through the experience.
Okay, thank you. Just to clarify one more thing, what are the indicators that point you that yes, this team, one of the values of this team is a trust, and this as a trust is among these people? How can we understand that people are working with such a value here?
So to get your questions,
what are the indicators of trust in the team?
Oh yeah. So I have a book I can recommend as well, because always when I think about trust, I think of this pyramid, and it's called The 5 Dysfunction of a Team. If you know about
yes,
it. And
yes, book, yes.
Yes. So when I think about trust, and in this pyramid, you have the base, that is, if you have absence of trust, then you don't have conflicts, the second layer, and then you have lack of accountability. So basically no one cares. And then at last you don't have results. So taking this backward, how do you see when there's not a good trust in the team? So first you look at the results. If there are actually inefficient process or result, you can guess what is dysfunctional here. And then going a deeper layer, if you see, for example, that everyone is like agreeing, nodding, like, okay, let's do this, and something really silly as a decision, like just one person said, let's do this, and everybody said, okay, yeah, let's do this. Everybody agrees in harmony, but it's an artificial harmony. So no one feels safe actually to say, I'm not sure about this decision, like to in front of the group and say, I think we should think about other options or this, that, and that. So for me, a sign is when you don't have conflicts in a team, it's a sign that either everyone agrees too much, but that doesn't exist, or then people are not feeling safe or in trust to confront each other to have healthy conflicts.
Yeah, I agree with you that actually sometimes the conflict is needed for a team just to shape some ideas, and a healthy conflict is like a feature that indicates that this team is like alive. One more point I would like to ask you. Actually, we have a question from our auditor and audience, and they are asking us how do you check in the interview at the beginning that values of the team.
Yeah, for example, you have an interview with someone and you need to understand what is this person, who is it, and what values does he possess, and is it any way to understand this? Are there any way to ask this person, or to maybe with help of empathy or with help of your knowledge, how do you understand what is a person behind you, right in front of you?
Yeah, it's by the way, it's like the whole section of my masterclass on Rise and Play, because it's a huge topic about the hiring. How can you get trust in who you hire? Like, have you got the right person as you intended it to be? But here for today, I'll answer like on the base level. At first, to understand someone, it takes time. So I think for the process of hiring and interviews, anything that you have in interaction with a person tells you something about the person. And I would say these days it's a bit tricky with remote. So I love to meet face to face because there's a body language, there's, facial expression, like how you behave. So of course you miss a lot of that through videos, but there are still ways. So in interviews, actually, I have a first step that I call a screening interview. It starts with me, where I have 30-45 minutes with candidates to a set of questions I go through, and they are always the same. So I think in the process, it's very important to stay consistent with your approach of interview. So then you can compare candidates, how they behave differently, and can make, so if you improvise for each interviews, then, everything is mixed. You cannot compare or measure. So I have a set of questions that are, could be very generic to like more specific. So I give examples like what have you done before, and what made you change a job to another? That's a question I always ask. So what was the transition point? Like what happened in the mind of a person to decide to move from one place to another, like on 2-3 position, and at last today, why do they want to move? So why, for example, that question tells a lot to me. It's so how the person talks, what they decide to share. So some of them say, well, I was happy in my job and I moved, and then, and so on, like very general. And then this is where I say, okay, you stayed 6 months in this place. That's not the real story. So here I test how the person is open to share even difficult things, And sometimes I have people who answer very differently and say, well, in this job, it was very difficult because of this reason. I was not feeling well in this job, and, admitting mistakes even sometimes, and saying, oh, I had to move, or I looked for a job for X months. So being super honest and transparent, and it's already a value. So you can get a lot when you let people talk about how they say things, what they decide to share, and poke a little bit, for questions. And one part that I also look at a lot, what people value actually tells a lot. And that's why it's important to always leave questions at the end of the interview, is what people ask about. So when people ask nothing, Well, for me, it's not always a good thing, actually. So I like to hear the questions of candidates and what they ask about. Sometimes I have candidates asking, what will be my holiday days in the company? So they say, oh, okay, I can answer to you. And some others, they go really into details. How do you make sure that your culture is working? It's like, oh, that's a tough question, but that means they care. Or if we don't succeed in this game in 6 months, what will happen to the studio? That's a real question. So they care about the long-term variability and they are not afraid to ask this question. So I learned a lot also through the question in interviews. And that's through the process. So we have, 6, 7 interviews. So each interviewers take their notes and we cross then the notes between interviews. So this is where you can see if a person is consistent, and then you can start to paint a picture. So it's like a puzzle. I take a piece of a puzzle, other interviewers take a piece of a puzzle, and we try to assemble the picture. And if we see it makes sense, then we have a good sense of a person. But if they are very inconsistent from an interview to another, it also tells a lot about the person. So do they know what they want? Are they sure? Or do they appear differently in interviews? So it can tell us a lot as well. So this is designed for this, the interview process, through these steps to, have a grasp. And at last, I would say at this point, there's no 100% right when you hire. So by experience, I would say you are 70% sure, but the 30% has still to be proven. That's what the probation period is for. You get to know really people when you work with them. There's no other way. But then if it doesn't work out in probation period, you part ways early, and you don't have to do it a year later in a painful way. So I would consider the probation period still part of the hiring.
Okay. And how long this is probation period usually?
So for us in Germany, it's 6 months. So it's quite long. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, it's huge.
Yeah.
Six, seven interviews and 6 months of a probation period. Wow, that's a tough.
Yeah. So I think that's also something, I don't know if it's something we do more that's quite common or in my organization. But the thing is, hiring is such a big stake because you invest your time, you invest money to onboard people. Like even in Berlin, we have 12 nationalities. So we had to onboard people, relocate, just integrate people. So we need to spend some time to be sure, actually eliminate as much as possible at the early funnel. And then we onboard as well. We want to be sure. So 6 months usually leaves enough time where halfway we already have a good idea if it works or not. And if sometimes it doesn't, it's a good point, a halfway review. So halfway of 6 months to give also the feedback to the person. Look, I'm not sure if it's working. So they can calibrate or decide for themselves, look, actually, it's not working for me either. And usually we part ways as well after this discussion. So it's a good time for each other to correct or to confirm and part ways. But how is it in Ukraine usually? I'm curious now.
Usually it's like 3 months, 2 months. Some companies even have 1 month of probation period and two or three interview, but it depends on the company, actually, to be frank. But standard situations is like this I've told.
And I think it also depends on the position.
Yeah. It depends on the position. And actually, to proceed further with this talk, what roles should a team consist of?
Yeah, so that depends also on the phase.
So if you, for example, want to create a new game, what roles are you seeking of at the market, and how the obligations are divided between their people?
Also, if you can share some non-NDA particular cases, we will be really grateful, but no pressure.
Yeah. There's nothing I would say quite secretive to share about team composition and what roles are needed. I think looking back when I started also the studio, it was 1.5 years. My priority, my first hires were developers, to be honest, because I don't code. So for me, it was really important that we get started, like produce something and start to test things, experiment. So my profile is more product management, product leadership. So at least with one dev, we could work. So that I think when you think of game development, you should definitely have somebody who can code at first. If it's you, great. But if it's not, go get first developers. And additionally, I had, artists, designers, product manager. I chose to have one also very early because in the end, these days in the market, it's quite important to have a tactical approach to the market. What are you doing? You cannot go randomly like, I will make a game and launch it and let's see what happens. You have to look at the marketing, the performance of the game, market positioning. But one thing I can recommend when you think of building really a studio, if you are in survival mode, you need just to have a prototyping team, a dev, art you can get on Unity, to be honest, to get started, and a designer. So probably dev and designer are the vital functions to get started. But as you grow your studio, and like we are 14 now, I see really values, especially for a game. We have a game in soft launch we've been producing like for almost a year now. And having a pair per craft is really helpful because you can be critical in your decision. So it's good to have 2 devs, 2 designers, 2 artists at least, and 2 product people because they work in tandem. They work always together, and you are somebody to check your work. Because if you are the solo designer or dev, you just do everything. Nobody is critical on your work, and then you launch and you see it doesn't work and you don't know why, and you spend, 1, 3, 6 months on this. So it helps also to have pairs in the craft.
Okay, thank you. Do you have PM in the team?
Yes, I do have one. So I have a product leadership role, but like now I'm stepping away because I have also like a strong product manager, and he joined from the beginning as well.
Oh, okay. And what are responsibilities of PM in your team?
Yeah, so product manager is responsible for the performance of a product. So of course, one can say like it's a bit odd to have a product manager when you don't have a product yet. I would say from the moment you start to build a game and put it out, this is where you should definitely have a product manager. So that's the main role of product manager, to really make sure that the game performance follows the goals. So as a studio lead or a product lead, I define the goals of where the game should be, and the product manager makes sure that it meets these KPIs by making priorities on the roadmap, giving feedback to a design art team to create the priorities in the backlog. And the second responsibility of a product manager is to support the team with insights. So it could be qualitative data, like player insights, player research, or quantitative data. So dashboard, setting up the dashboard, giving the metrics to the team so they make better decision in design, for example, balancing or monetization. It's the work of an economy designer or designer. And that's the role also of product manager, to say, we are aiming for this KPI. These are the insights. How can we make sure that we meet these targets with the work like on design or art we do?
Okay, I think. Do you have a project manager?
Yes, as well. So we have a producer. I would say these days it's a bit tricky. I heard project manager and producer in other companies, but in the end, the project manager or / producer, the role is as a contrast to the product manager. And by the way, when we started, my product manager was the producer, so he was covering 2 responsibility. But as a producer, your role is to make sure that the work is executed in the time defined, so in time and quality. So you are responsible of making sure that the work is done in the time defined and in the quality defined. That's your role as a producer.
Okay.
Yeah, I have also one question. For example, you have a person that fits your fits hard skill qualities, fit any kind of any kind of hard skills you need from them, and the problem is this person doesn't share your values. What will you do with this person?
I can tell you quickly, I will part ways, but I will, and without hesitation, actually. And I will tell you, elaborate more why. So I have tried in the past to work with. I have tried in the past to work with different. Different people in this case where, they had all their hard skills, and unfortunately, sometimes when they were not aligned, then it makes it really hard for any decision to happen, anything that we needed to do in the team, always like against the decision. So, no, I disagree to do this, or I want to do this. So pulling always in a different direction. And unfortunately, as a consequence, it takes always the energy for you as a team lead to make it work for that individual, while the rest of the team is focused on the same efforts. So what you are compromising is with your time and attention to make sure that one person is happy, and then it takes actually on the time for other people to continue the work in the team. So yeah.
Sophie, and what is the role of team lead? Who is the first? You have already told us that the first person of the team is a developer. Yeah, yeah. What is the role of team lead?
Yeah.
And who can become this team lead?
Should it be a producer or maybe project manager, or team lead is just a different person at all?
Yeah. So for a team lead, I think a lot of people can evolve and grow to this role, because it's not so much about hard skills you have, but really a lot of soft skills. So maybe the misunderstood profession about when you are a team lead, like as a producer, product lead, your role is to create the environment for a team to create great games. So your role is not to create the games, but you create the environment, the system for a team to execute this game. And so the difference here is like the focus is a lot on processes, culture, values in the studios, how people work, how they work together, do they have clear goals and priorities, and so on. So as qualities for a team lead, I think this is, of course, my opinion and my way of like seeing the leadership, like I would say 3.0, more modern these days, is really you need to really care about people. I think this is one of the big quality. If you are an excellent producer or product manager, but you love to be hands-on and love your craft, maybe this role is not for you. You need to have really the passion to grow people, create an environment, like to love to listen to people, go in one-on-one, care for them. And this is like a very different role than just being hands-on and doing things. So that's I would say an important nuance for whoever wants to grow. Like, yourself if you have really that passion for humans in a way.
What does usually he do? How his day usually looks like?
Yeah. So my day can be quite different, but usually I have. So I try to have a maximum of what I call white space in the calendar. So that means free space to always welcome. Either if people have issues, problems, blockers, they need to, some help. So I try to make myself free, but most of the time, then if I'm not disturbed, then I look a lot at the high-level strategy of the studio. So how do we improve our process? How do we improve our culture? Where are we going? What are the possible risks and the hurdles that come in the way? So my thinking focus is always 3 steps ahead. I always have to see the different roads of future and make sure that we make the right decision today to not have the scenario of a bad future for us as a studio. So it can be a lot about financials. How do we make sure we have cash in the next 6 months? How do we make sure we have the people we need in the next 6 months? How do we make sure that if someone leaves today, how do I make sure that we have a good rotation to be replaced, etc. And so a lot of discussion, one-on-one, product strategy, market research, for example, how I spend my time. And also networking is a big important part. So even like the work like I'm doing now, like being publicly present in the network for, I don't know, future hiring opportunity, to share learning and practices between teams to grow the market, to grow our studio in the market and the industry.
And how usually you are teaching or changing mindset, or do you believe we can you can change or teach a new person of your values?
Yeah, so I think there's always, of course, I don't know if change is possible, but I think sometimes there are misunderstanding. So sometimes we have misunderstanding between people where we think we are not fighting for the same things, and then we think we have a value discrepancy. But sometimes for communication, empathy, trust, we see we are working towards the same goal. And in that case, I think there's always evolution from the moment you see, okay, maybe we are not aligned, we are aligned. But I have seen as well, in my case as well, for some people who were in our team, and sometimes, unfortunately, we had to part ways. But really, it was so much part of a core value that they couldn't change, and it was even painful to be in this team. So, for example, in our team, we are very open for conflicts. So we are not afraid to confront with a direct feedback, even negative feedback, and we are very straightforward. And if for some people they are very uncomfortable with conflicts and they just cannot, it's like creates anxiety, creates stress, and it's deeper than what we can do in the team. It makes it very difficult for the person to even evolve and grow, because that's part of our DNA as a team. Like, let's talk about the hard things. Let's look at the facts and the problems in front and not try to hide them under the rug. And sometimes it hasn't worked out for everyone because it was too stressful to work this way. And I completely respect and understand that. And usually when we part ways, it's a mutual decision. When we come to the point really nobody is happy. You're not happy, I'm not happy, we're not happy. Why are we forcing it?
Wow, for me, this role of team lead, it's like a teacher, mentor, some kind of older brother, you know. Yeah, cool. It's really high responsibility role. Yeah.
And one more question is regarding leadership. We have already have a short talk with you earlier, and you told me about this leadership. Can it be taught, or how do you see that a person is a leader?
So coming back to the earlier question, I think when you have people who really care, genuinely care about the people, I think that's the first quality. And it's not necessarily, so some people say you are born with the quality of a leader. I think it's something you can definitely learn. So there are many people who really just care and are driven by, I don't know, working with people. So it comes first with interest. So are you really passionate about working with people? If you don't like to talk, this will be a very hard job for you. So it's something like to be aware. And I think a key skill that can be developed a lot, and I grow also leads in my team. So I grow the tech lead, the art lead. I have also the product manager I hired. I grow him as my co-lead. So he's my second in the studio. And what am I teaching here for them to grow in this role? It's mostly about communication. How do you communicate with others? And how do you empathize and listen? And these are skills you can learn. So there are methods, you know. How do you connect with others when you want to develop other people? So first, stop to talk, you know, listen, ask questions. Don't come with solutions. For example, when somebody comes with a problem, just listen and reflect the problem to them. Because people are smart, they will come up with their own solution. And that's the best way to develop people, not to give them the solution. So these things that can be taught, you know. So there are a lot of trainings for that. We have those training programs at Vodou, but that's where it's time and experience, and it's a practice. It's like workout. You need to just practice it a lot until you learn. So what I encourage leads in my team, just do it. And it's like, oh, I'm not sure, I make mistakes, and just try. Yes, you will make mistakes, but try again and you learn. This is the best way actually to learn. As long as you keep going, and then you forgive yourself for your mistakes, and people will always forgive you as well for the mistakes because you try, you know.
Yeah, so leadership is some kind of characteristic of a person that person should be born with leadership in his genome, and you can learn some kind of more high level skills, like to communicate, to help to achieve, to help to evolve, maybe help to earn some skills for other people. But leadership is some kind of alpha characteristic of a person, yeah?
Yeah, I really don't know if it's. I believe actually it's a position that a lot of people can take, but not necessarily everyone wants to take. So in reality, unfortunately, a lot of people want the perks of a leadership because you have a status, you have a power, you have a, you know, everything that goes with it. But a lot of people also don't want the work and the responsibility that comes with it. So I think it's really, again, about putting the right people in this position, and being a leader in a leadership position doesn't make you better than the others. It's just a different job, you know. Of course, it has a lot of responsibility and so on. But when you genuinely like it, then it doesn't feel like a burden. For me, it never feels like a burden when I go in my one-on-one with people, they have problems, it energized me. But if it's a burden, then actually, of course, it becomes of a hard job. So I really believe that a lot of people can grow there if they have in themselves, again, this inner drive to, you know, support others, nurture and grow others. It's like you said, like it's quite close to the teacher motivation, you know, like mentor or advocate motivation, you know. And I believe a lot of people can do it, to be honest.
Okay, thank you. And one more question is, we have already see in your product Rise and Play, where you talk about people-centric approach. Can you share us your opinion about this, some thoughts? What is about and how to design such approach in a company that makes successful games?
Yeah, so I think we see also a change. Of course, it will take some time in the nature and expectation of work, of people who come at work. Maybe back in the days, people worked to get money, to pay the rent, to pay the house, to pay food, etc. That's an old model. So of course you go to work, it's a job, you get something back, and then, you know, end of the day. And games actually industry also is quite new, and it comes also with expectation of workers. And I say more on a global level that you expect at work that you will be recognized, that you self-realize yourself, you know, like you fulfill like some of your dreams, aspirations, that you are well respected, etc. So you expect a lot as a person when you get to work, and not just money at the end of the day and not be treated well. So as we see now in games, everybody can work everywhere. Even with remote, you can choose to work for any companies. If you're a developer, you can find a job easily. So for companies, if you don't treat well your people, nobody wants to stay with you. Even if you are like the great and you pay a lot of money, I strongly believe these days that some people would just leave because they are not cared of. So it's really shifting the mindset is as an organization or as a lead, you want to build something for the long term. You want to create a successful game, and you know it will take you 3, 5, 10 years to get there to create really something big and that will last. You need people to make games. But if you don't keep your people, then you don't make any business. So that's putting, again, the human back at the center of the organization, forgetting for a moment, like, people are not resources, they're humans, and they have wants. And some of them will just walk away if you don't treat them well. So this is where, as leads and boss, we are responsible of how we treat our people in the team and in the organization, and as equal, and not just as our people resources, just to get something out of them. So that's why I created this platform, this knowledge, and I'm talking about it today, because the one who will learn more about this approach, they will find out later in a hard way when their people will leave them, actually. And it's good to take care of it now than too late after they lost the people.
Just to proceed further with this topic, how should look a good compensation and benefit system in a team? Yeah.
Yeah. So I can share also some example of how we have managed it in our team. And I really like that model. So we are very transparent. We show a grid. We show the salary of everybody. And we pay people by the experience and seniority. So it's very equal. So basically, if you're a senior artist or a senior developer or a senior product manager, you are paid the same range. So it doesn't make any difference between the crafts. So it makes it actually quite equal. So everyone has an important contribution in the organization. And each other can see the grid. So then, they know, or they can have a guess, so who earns what. And in the end, we are working all to make a game. And we have an incentive at the end of the day on the profit, future profit of the game. And everybody has a share of that, because in the end, we work to create a success where we are part of, it's like being a creating company, a venture. So I think I am actually aligned with that kind of incentive and system where everyone has an equal contribution, then an equal reward. And then we have also skin in the game. That means that we work hard to make this game, but also we get something back. So we have even more reasons to make it work.
I would like to share some private info. After hearing your speech, I'd like to tell that Ivana, she is our leader, and she's a really good leader, And yeah, because you told us a lot of points, and I was sitting and thinking about it, and yeah, she's a great leader, and thanks for this. Also, regarding this topic, I really appreciate the idea that team get a share of the product, because they're working for this product success, and when the product succeed and they get some shares from this success, I think this is awesome, and thanks for sharing this knowledge and implementing this approach. And yeah, that's amazing. And maybe we have some questions in our live stream.
Actually, yes, one more question we have. Do you believe that a person can be taught or develop a value by the company, or it's impossible?
So when the value, in a company, I can also talk with my own experience. When I joined Vodou, I have my personal values, and Vodou has 6 values. Some they have ownership, excellence, etc. So of course, they are not my core values, and that doesn't mean that I cannot work in the company. But do I support these values? I think that's a question that should happen when people ask themselves if they should join a place. That doesn't mean because you have these core values that they are yours, that it won't work. But do you believe in these values? So for example, if I have a company that has some value that are really opposite to mine, this is where I would ask myself, do I really want to join? So for example, if a company has a value and it's not a wrong value, But for example, it's like result over people. So as a company, they're really result oriented, and they do whatever it takes for the result, and that's okay as well. I mean, it's very clear and transparent. But for me, I will always put people before the result. That's my personal way, because it's for me a long-term game. I prefer to lose on the result short-term, but keep the people. But if in an organization that always prioritize, like the short-term gain over the people, that's probably not an organization for me. And that will nothing will change my mind about that. So I think it's, if people, and not as only as a lead, but, for people who are asking themselves if they have the right values, it's like, are they honest to themselves if they're in a place that is so opposite to what they believe in, and where at the end of the day, you are doing a favor to each other by being open and honest about it.
Yeah, I have one more question. Maybe it's some kind of closing question. For example, I'm a young leader, and I'd like to succeed in future. I'd like to grow, to implement this growth mindset, integrity, and ownership things from your LinkedIn bio. And could you share some small advice for such young leader that could help this person to be better in future for the team, for the product, for the business?
It's a tricky one, just one, but I think of the key fundamental. Never give up on people. So sometimes you may find yourself in really hard situation where people will not like you. People are, like not supporting you. You are misunderstood. The game sucks. The result sucks. Everything is bad. And you are the last person who will believe in the group. So if you give up, everything falls. So I think that's, especially I remember my earlier years. Some moments I really wanted to give up because, it takes a path to get there, to get the trust. So keep hope in people, but there are ways to get there. It just takes time, and not giving up on the first hurdle. That would be my advice.
Thank you a lot. And wow, that was a pretty exciting hour of interview. And thanks for joining us. We were glad to see you here to learn something from you, right? Because as for me, this hour was really inspiring, and really
very short. Very short hour.
Yeah, very short hour, because really just like a blast. Wow, awesome.
Thank you for joining us, and I hope we will have one more live talk in a month to share some more tricky questions or some examples from your life from a career path.
Yeah, personally, the first thing I'm gonna do when I arrive home today, and I'm gonna open Rise and Play, and I'll go, okay, so let's see some videos.
Nice. And that's why I made this material, because there are not a lot of courses for leadership in gaming, or at least not like so much like theoretical. And I work most of this talk, so I hope this will be helpful for everyone interested in growing in this career.
Yeah, thank you, and bye-bye. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
Спасибо всем, кто к нам сегодня присоединился. Спасибо Софи Ву за потрясающий час. Это реально было очень интересно. Я на самом деле сказал, что я действительно приеду домой и буду смотреть видео с платформы Rise and Play, потому что настолько нишевая, необычная тема, то есть развитие вот этого leadership в игровой индустрии. Кто об этом еще говорит?
Очень все, скажем, это как идти в темноте, когда что-то проявляется.
Да,
вот.
Да. Это действительно очень круто, и на самом деле Я надеюсь, что у нас будет еще один лайфток на эту тему, в котором мы сможем больше углубиться в какие-то более интересные детали, потому что на основании этого лайфтока наверняка появится очень большое количество вопросов, размышлений, мыслей, и потом, знаете, как с методичкой такой, так, у меня есть пара вопросиков.
Итак, если у вас есть вопросы, пишите нам, мы их запишем в следующее интервью с Софией.
Да, можно в комментарии, можно в личку в любой соцсети, подписывайтесь, ставьте лайки, колокольчики на эти видосы. У нас, если вы смотрите нас сейчас на ютубе, а скорее всего смотрите нас на ютубе, у нас на канале большое количество других видео, обзоры артбуков, подкаст, скоро выйдет второй выпуск, и другие лайфтоки по предыдущим, по вселенным Мандалорца, по Звездным войнам, по вселенной Assassin's Creed, по вселенной Киберпанка. Потрясающее количество контента, смотреть, не пересмотреть, поэтому спасибо, что были с нами сегодня. С вами были Тарас Жуков, Ивана Погребняк.
Спасибо вам, до встречи.
Пока-пока, друзья.